A long time ago, there was one guy that loved staying up all night. It was a nighttime person. When everyone else had their fun and went to bed early, because they had work in the morning, but this guy enjoyed looking up at the stars at night, liked to draw them and imagine what's up there and reflect on his place in the great universe. He didn't have a job or kids, and he played his part. He played kids, and this played. He never had kids, and this played his part in his sleeping patterns, and everyone looked down on him. So every morning he got up and everyone got up, they took the piss out of him and said, "Why don't you get a job?" But one day somebody went up to this man and smiled and said, "What's your name?" He replied, "I don't have one because no one likes me, so they don't use my name. It's been so many years I forgot." This guy smiled and said, "I will just call you the Sun Man, as I seen as you're always up to watch the sunrise." This guy had a joint or a coffee and had felt better, as that somebody had cared enough and was brave enough to be kind and understanding to somebody who felt a bit down. He never told anyone what the man said and treasured his secret name, and every day when the sun rose he thought of the kind man and smiled. Every day as he had his coffee and a joint. The human body is a creation of itself. The roundness of its form, its beauty, and in the position of the elbows and such. Practical and human body is centre of your world, and the world is in the centre of your form. And when you look at a photograph of a naked form, you should appreciate what a marvellous structure it is. Practical, efficient, and beautiful, and a source of desire. If you look at this photograph and find yourself in a reproductive mood that is healthy, we all view the world differently, and we all are basically the same machine. Beauty and admiration is the same thing, and exploration of the heart has to be in line with what your concept of beauty is, and you cannot have one without the other. If you simply desire and do not admire, then the eye is overriding the heart, and if that is the case, the heart will be strengthened, so a balance between beauty and admiration should be established. If you desire and do not admire, then lust will turn to hate, and your love for yourself will be weakened. It is a state of mutual ideals for each other that we long for, but beautiful people, I have learnt, are beautiful inside as well, but no one is ugly, just their personalities can be damaged by the opinions of others. As a very old saying goes, in all things beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Just don't hold on too tight, or you both will suffocate. Love and move on if you must, and you'll leave a symbol of that love to the person you spent the time together. Love, this is what I learnt from you. The moon is without the light of day, and the shadows fall around unknowing reason, unknowing love from the end to the start. My soul ripped apart, the candlelight strips wax onto the mantelpiece that covers the ground, then dies like my love for you eternal, and my passion witness while I cry in the candle-lit room. Will you, who am I, carry on my work? Will I be remembered and he remembered for me? These entities that give suggestions, let's call them ghosts, can make something appear to be something else, simply by saying, "Doesn't that look like a face?" And then the ruffled blanket appears to have a face on it. It's like being hypnotized by a ghost. This is a very common thing for them to do. They can also use this ability to make themselves manifest. For example, when you hear a ruffling in a bush or the wind blowing leaves, you will say to yourself, "Is somebody there?" There's a person behind you, you'll think. This triggers the paranoia and can result in periods of fear. For the subject, they interact with the subconscious, these ghosts do, on a level between the unphysical layer of reality. I'm still yet to have a name for this area, but let's call it unphysical layer, where material as we know it can't exist. Evil that has always been created evil of its own, but the most powerful of its foes became good and taught a man how to fight evil, so evil will be no more in the hearts of man. The man and the takeaway. A man went to feed them that a man went to feed them that said they were hungry. He went up to each man and woman and said, "Do you want some food?" Each person said no. So the man moved on and then went to go home. He opened a bag of chips and felt a bit bad and hoped all the people who refused the chip had something to eat for tea. And he got paranoid. Some people will refuse help through pride, and then remembered he had lost his pizza and thought, I hope one of them had found it and eaten it. Residing in a cafe bar having a coffee, really need a cig, so off out for a cheeky cig, maybe even a joint later. Eyes, the wider the eye, the bigger the door, depending on how wide your eyes are. Dilated pupils allow perception of visual light, and remember, light is a signal and it can be found drug-induced or through deep thinking. When blinking starts again, the person goes back into a calm and relaxed state, and the pupil goes back to normal. And as the saying goes, the eyes are the windows to your mind, or as some people like to say, soul. Love is a creation, time transcends the body and joins with light, and that light rides alongside energy. It reflects against your eye in mirrors and walls. The positive or negative length of the frequency enters the eye when it is dilated. Coffee, sugar and stimulants for certain individuals can result in high frequency light that is negative energy that triggers susceptible creative paranoia, angry side resulting in psychosis. Low frequencies affects the calm and stable mood. Happy content, sleep is important, or just relax and close your eyes for 10 minutes. Cannabis and sedatives are great medication that can help, but people around you need to learn how to love you again. You are loved. Record your own voice and say positive things. It works great. May love and joy, happiness. May joy and happiness be with you always. In beauty there's a silver lining, strength and imagination is key. The anger you feel towards others is just a small reflection of the anger you feel towards yourself. People that dislike you are most likely jealous, and that their jealousy turns to anger and hate. You must always be calm and write down only the good, and separate yourself emotionally from the individuals or groups and believe in only yourself. When times are hard, you are the most important person to yourself, and them that love you, know you, will always be with you, physically or in memory, to strengthen your resolve. There, there has been people around to help, and I hope one day for a society that helps one another. As a good man once said, I have a dream, and that dream learns to love one another and do what comes natural, what unconditional without fear. Name that love, twisted by society's deformation of love. Nothing to do, drink coffee unless you can. Legends say there is a place for very ill Jedi. It's secretly hidden in a lost city, not many people know of it. but it is real, and now I'm again people would go missing, unknown to the families and friends, and never seen again. These people were damaged by great knowledge and power, and needed to be tempered in many ways. And as the saying goes, you need to break a mind to make a mind. So a group of nurses and doctors devised a plan of action. They worked in secret and never gave up their philosophy of simply being nice. It started a long time ago with a young boy called Vinny, and he really wasn't well, but he had the surprisingly talented brightening an upper room, and he seemed to understand himself and the needs of other people around him, and was always kind. He would go into fits of rage, but always saw reason and logic his goal, and one staff member decided to write down some of the stuff he was saying and tell her friends about this boy called Vinny. She didn't know his second name, but she always remembered him. Laughing, she employed some of his boy's wisdom in her own life. She felt better and she told people about Vinny, but most people were negative, like to think they know it all when in fact they know very little. And one day a nurse had a text message that her dad had passed away and she had to leave work early. As she was very upset, Vinny passed her in the corridor and wanted to show her something. It was a poem he had just wrote. I can't remember the name of the poem that well, but sadly, Sandy Watcher's jaw dropped as it was in her dad's handwriting, and Vinny said, I like you. He always did, like he always said to certain people. Sandy got in her car and drove off home and had a cheese toastie because it was all Vinny went on about was cheese toasties, and she felt a little better. There was once a man who struggled every day. He couldn't understand why everyone hated him. He had mental health problems all his life and really believed things he saw. A lot of doctors and nurses tried to help the poor lad. He really believed he could turn water into wine, but in the reports all that was said was he was pouring sugar into water and proceeding to get a little buzzed. Mr. Paranoia went to see Mr. Calmness, and they got into a fight. Mr. Paranoia said, "That's my watch." Mr. Calmness replies in a soothing voice, "That's my birthday present." Mr. Calmness said, "Let's ring up my mum, and I can prove it's my watch." So Mr. Calmness rang up his mum. Mr. Paranoia said, "You could be calling anyone." So Mr. Calmness said, "I will put it on video call so you can see my birthday party in the background." Then Mr. Paranoia said, "Okay." So Mr. Calmness made the call. It beeped, the connected. Mr. Calmness said, "Hello, mum. My mate Paranoia thinks this watch is his." The, the mother replies and says, "Mr. Paranoia, that is my son's watch. I gave it to him today." Then she picks up the box. The watch came in and showed it on camera. Mr. Paranoia realised he had made a mistake and said sorry. The mother replies, you two keep arguing all the time. Keep it up and I will be calling Mr. Logical Police on you." Mr. Paranoia kept quiet and Mr. Calmness said, "Thanks, Mum." He put the phone down and Mr. Paranoia and Mr. Calmness went to see their mate, Mr. Logical, whose dad was a police officer, who was always called so logical, and so they stayed. Begins. So the story begins for the two new friends that had only just met that day, only just met each other, and the day before school. Yeah, it's hard to read it. Light travels alongside different frequencies and balance of surfaces and travels with energy. Light and energy are the same. For example, thought is described as a vocal and is understood by the receiving brain. Light levels and mood lighting is essential as different people have different tolerances to blue, red, green. These are triggers for some. That is why red is scary and the sight of blood repels some people.